All right, let's take off here. So I'm going to be going through with you guys what's new in Q1 and Q2 of 2021 for Jonas Encore. First thing we have here is we have added a link to the help videos playlist right in the system. So our very own Alyssa Reese has created a library of help videos out there on YouTube that have been out for quite some time, accessible on the web. But now we have access to them right within the system. So in the system, you can go into your help menu and go to our help videos playlist. So I'm just going to demo that for you guys real quickly here. So if you want to access these help videos, you just have to be on version 21.6.2. And if you want to access these help videos, you just click on your Encore logo all the way at the top left. Then hover over our help menu within this screen and scroll down to our help videos playlist here. So if you click on that icon, that will actually launch you directly to our YouTube video library that Alyssa has created. And the first thing you're going to want to do when you get to this Encore page is you want to subscribe to our library here, and then you can utilize all of our help videos we have access to here. So very cool feature that we've added to the system to be able to quickly get to our Jonas Encore YouTube page. Okay, so next up's a minor feature here that we've added for email settings. So we have extended the password length to allow up to 75 characters. So this was done to accommodate email sending providers such as SendGrid, for example, that have recently changed their password requirements to be longer and more secure, if you will. So we accommodated this by adding up to 75 characters in the email configuration for your password. So next up, we've got some features in accounts payable. This one in particular, we have added a new document attached indicator. So what this does is allows you to attach documents into accounts payable, which we've actually always been able to do with our document management module. But the specific feature here that you have is you can, once you attach the documents, back in step 1 of the invoice entry screen, you can actually see which invoices you've attached documents towards and which ones you have not. So we've always had the ability to attach documents, as I mentioned, but it was kind of difficult to see which ones you've attached documents to, and you had to go to step 3 to be able to see all the documents. But this allows you to see right up front in step 1 of the invoice entry of which documents or which invoices have a document attached to it. So next up, we've got a feature in accounts receivable. This feature was requested by many clients here to allow a larger view of the member photo on file in accounts receivable. So in some of our other modules, such as point of sale and activity tracking, we've had a nice large view of the member photo so that your staff in point of sale could see the member and associate them to their account. But in accounts receivable, the size of the photo was always rather small, and we have a lot of requests from customers to be able to see a larger image. So what we did here is we allow you to be able to see that enlarged image just by clicking on it. So if you open up a member in your member file, you can now click on that photo and actually see an enlarged view of that member's photo. Another feature we have here in accounts receivable is a new format for the minimum spending report. So this new format allows you to see it by member, including their minimum cycle and year information. So whereas before everything was organized by minimum type, now you can see it by member. And as you can see here in the screenshot, what that does is breaks down each member on their own row with their minimum cycle and year-to-date information about their spending against your minimum categories. Next up here, we've got a feature from Time Tracker. So what we did here is we allow, with our Time Tracker download for third-party systems, for those clubs that are using Jonas Club Management Payroll specifically, we now allow you to export both the job and department codes. So this was to accommodate those staff members that might have special pay rates or special rules for certain jobs and departments. So we now allow you to export that in the third-party download so that you can import that into your Jonas Club Management payroll module. This was added for both US and Canadian payroll types. Next up, we've got some features in system administration. So the first thing here to point out is the user staff messages improvement that we put in. We put in a feature for an attestation specifically, but not necessarily having to be used for, but we specifically put it in there for staff to acknowledge their rules around COVID-19, for example. Maybe the staff didn't, obviously you don't want your staff coming to the club if they've been exposed to COVID-19 or if they have symptoms of COVID-19. So it's a very highly requested feature here to be able to force users to acknowledge and attest that they are in good health and they have not been exposed to COVID-19. You could certainly use this feature for other applications, but the one example here that comes to mind lately in this day and age, unfortunately, is to attest to your health when showing up to work. So just to demo this feature a little bit to show you guys how you would utilize this. This feature is found under System Administration. If you go into System Administration and go to System Setups, within System Setups, we have User Staff Messages, which I've actually already opened up here, and I've created two user staff messages here, one called a COVID attestation and one called a COVID contact. So if you were setting these up from scratch, you would simply click New, and that would start to set up the rule from scratch, or the message from scratch, I should say. But to go with the one I've already created here, I've basically given it a title, and then I've given it a message that asks the staff member, in the last day, have you experienced any of the following symptoms? And then we've listed a few of those symptoms, for example. You then have the option to restrict this to a certain date range. So if you were using this for some other sort of application, you could restrict that to a certain date range. In this case, I'm not going to restrict it to a certain date range and have it pop up all the time. Next up, if we follow through your tabs here, you can go into rules and you can set up those rules. For example, do you want the message to display both at login and clock in? So for those of you using our time tracker module, it would pop up both when they clock in and when they log into the point of sale, for example. Your other options you have there is you can either have it pop up simply only when they clock in or simply only when they log in. So the key feature we've actually added here is that we can allow you to require acknowledgement of this message. So if I check this box that says requires acknowledgement, I can then select whether I want this to require acknowledgement every time I log into the system, or once per day, or until acknowledged, or I could also use it until acknowledged is yes, or until acknowledged is no. So in this case, I would probably want to say until acknowledged response is no, so that the staff member has to say, no, I do not have any symptoms of COVID-19, for example. And if they say yes, it would not allow them to log in. So in this case, I'm going to change that to until acknowledged is no. And then the other options you have here are you can set up which departments you require this message to pop up for. So if it only applied to certain departments, I could do that. Same thing for job codes. I could control which job codes this applies to. And then also staff and users. So the reason we give you both staff and users, because certain staff members may be only set up to clock in and out through time tracker, and they may not necessarily be users. So we give you the option to enforce this upon users and staff. And then the last tab here actually allows you to go see the acknowledgements and who has currently acknowledged this rule or this message here. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then I'm going to apply the same change to my second message here so you can see how that flows. I'm just going to go into rules and say requires acknowledgement, and I'll say until response is no, disallow clock ins, and go ahead and save it. So then just to show you how that works, I'm going to log out of my system, and then once it pops back up, we'll go ahead and log in again. Okay, so now I'm going to log into my system, and this is what we get. So it asks me the question, in the last 14 days have you been in close contact with anyone who's confirmed positive, so I can say no to that, hopefully. And then we can also acknowledge that we do not have any of the following symptoms, so I can say no to that. And now it'll allow me to to actually log in and use the system, whereas if I had clicked yes in that example, it would not have allowed me to log in. So a little feature there, we've always had the ability to do user messages when people logged in, but we added the feature to be able to do the acknowledgements, for that use case. And we also have a video on that as well, as mentioned in the first slide here with our Encore YouTube video. That's another offering we have out there to see that feature. Okay, so next up we've got document management. In this particular feature, 21.6.2, we've added the ability to see and search on the date of record attached to the document. So whereas before we only had the ability to see the creation date of the document, now we have the ability to see the date of record, which we know is not always the same thing. And you can also search the document management viewer using the look for box. You can search for that date of record and filter your documents based on that. Next up, we've added a feature in 21.6.2 to allow you to view your current licenses in use. So as you're probably aware, each club, depending on the size of their club, they purchase a particular number of licenses for number of users that can be in the system at a given time, both for global user licenses to get into the back office and also for specific modules such as point of sale. You might have only certain number of licenses to access the point of sale. So what we've added here is if you're ever having a problem with your licenses, maybe if you're out of licenses, something like that, you now have the ability to go view what licenses are currently in use. That way, if you find that a user maybe left their computer up over the weekend or on their day off, then maybe you could go shut down that system and free up a license. So just to show you where that is in the system, you would just go to System Administration, and then you would go to Tasks, and we have this button here that says View Current Licenses in Use. And this is where you can see your current licenses in use. As you can see in my system, I just have one license currently in use, and that's myself logged in. But at a club, you would be able to see the full list of users that are currently accessing the system and taking up a license there.
Interesting, because our first area of focus is actually activity tracking. So something we added last year, or early this year, I should say, is the ability to display a member display when members are checking in. So if you want to have a display in the gym or somewhere else where members can see who else is there at the same time, we were able to show originally one column of members that had checked in. It would show their checked-in time, who they are, their status. There's some other selectable information you can choose in there, but it's just a way to show members who else is there at the same time. Earlier this year, we added the ability for you to display multiple columns of members. So if you have a lot of people checked in, you can see all those people that had checked in previously. There are some rules around it, so people will automatically fall off the screen after a certain amount of time, and you can define what that is. So if it's a half hour, an hour, 3 hours, whatever it might be, you can dictate when a person's check-in will no longer display on the screen, or that'll naturally happen as more and more people check in and they can't be displayed on the screen any further. So again, a way to display to the members who else is in a particular activity type or facility at a given time. We also added a new feature in the most recent release, 21.6.2, whereby you can disable the check-in confirmation for manual check-in. So if you're using activity tracking and you have an attended ingress point where someone is going in and checking in on behalf of members, it'll no longer prompt them with that check-in confirmation. That's more useful for a member who's not sure what's happening. This is more for staff members that are checking in on members' behalves, just so that they don't have to see that check-in confirmation each time they check in a member. So you can turn it off. It's within the monitoring area configuration, and you go into general, you can see there that manual check-in area. You can do not display check-in confirmation, and that'll suppress that prompt from being shown. With regard to class scheduling, we've made a number of enhancements. Most notably, from a notification standpoint, is the ability to send out notifications when a class is canceled. So not when a member cancels their registration for a given class, but that a class itself has been canceled by someone at the club. So if the provider is ill and cannot fulfill that class, you have the ability to send out a notification to everybody that the class is canceled. These notifications can be sent out via email or push notification if you're using the Clubhouse Online app, whether that be the generic app or a special custom app built specifically for your club. And it'll send out a notification indicating to them that the class has been canceled and they no longer need to attend. We've also allowed for configuration of the advanced registration policy that is utilized online. So if you're using our Clubhouse Online website for members to book classes, you can set up how far in advance a member is able to book. So previously it was only available in days. We ran into some problems where clubs were hosting classes 2 days apart, and they set it to a 2-day registration. So when the class started, the window for the registration of the class 2 days later was also opening. So people were feverishly trying to get registered for the next instance prior to the class actually starting. So we now configure it in hours, so you can set that give it a little more offset so that people can attend the class that they're there to attend and register later, as opposed to being forced to do it when the moment the class starts, so that they make sure they get into the next one. So just a little change to make it a little easier for members to register without interrupting their actual attendance. A bigger feature that we added was the ability to duplicate classes. So this is something we had a very long time ago, removed because it was problematic, and now have enhanced so that it can be utilized, especially in cases where you're creating classes for things like gym registrations or pool bookings, where you have limits based on COVID rules that have been put in place, so you can only have a certain number of members in at a given time, especially in those areas like the gym and the pool. So what it allows you to do is to simply select a class, opt to duplicate it, and then you have a bunch of different options that you can utilize or not utilize depending on what you want to copy. So it's a lot like if you're familiar with our event management, the ability to duplicate an event. It's similar in that respect, in that it gives you the ability to duplicate what you want. And I'll take you through a quick demo of it. Just go over to my Encore. So within classes, for instance, you can go into something like fitness for we'll take, and there's this Tabata spinning class. I can select it, and when I hit duplicate, it's going to give me the option to duplicate those aspects that I'd like to. So I can say, you know what, this one, I want to start at 11 a.m. So I'll change the start time to 11 a.m. And then I have the option to copy any of this other information. Now, keep in mind that this is not the last step. When I hit continue with duplication, it's going to bring me into the class edit screen anyway, and I can modify any of these aspects of the class on my own. So when I say continue with duplication, it's going to pop up that create class screen or edit class screen, within which I can modify any or all the aspects. So I can change the provider if there's someone else that's eligible for it. I can change the location to a different place. I can even change the recurrence schedule. I can change any of these aspects. So I can say, you know what, I don't want it to recur every day of the week, but I'm going to leave that on. I can change the time again if I want. I can change the duration. So all that stuff can be modified based on your preference. But then when you hit save and close, it's going to create another class, this time starting at 11 a.m. as opposed to 10 a.m. Otherwise, everything else remains exactly the same except for the stuff that I opted to change. And in this case, that was just the facility going from Gymnasium A to Gymnasium C, or Gymnasium B to Gymnasium C. So it's just saving that information, and then that class is going to be available. So you can think if this was something you were doing for like gym reservations, you could easily just duplicate, and modify the time accordingly. We also, in our most recent release of Encore, we added the ability for you to configure the start time on the quarter hour. So previously you only had half-hour times. The duration of the class could be any quarter-hour time, but the start time was fixed on the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour. So we've now added the ability to start classes on the quarter hour, so at 10:15 or 10:45, for example. So you have a little more flexibility in selecting the start times of your classes. Moving on to court booking, we've made a number of enhancements to reports, which I'll go through within this webinar. So starting with the court booking report, we added the ability to repeat info on each line. So anytime you're exporting these reports to Excel and you want to do further analysis on them, the ability to have all of the information repeated on each line becomes very helpful in terms of sorting or filtering. So we've added that there. You can see the start time for each of the what we call reservations on it are now labeled with the start time, even though it's the same booking number, just different numbers on it. So again, like I said, giving you the ability to sort and filter in Excel if necessary. We've also added a canceled by and canceled on column. These are only applicable, obviously, when the booking has been canceled, but it will tell you who canceled it and at what date and time they canceled it. And that includes people that have done it online. If a member went online and canceled it themselves, as you can see here in this Roger Smith example, it's showing you that this was done online by Roger Smith versus being done in Encore by a user like myself in this case. So a couple bits of information that will help you utilize the court bookings report. We also added a report called the Detailed Guest Visit Report. So this provides detailed information on every guest visit to the club, and it'll also provide you with a count of the total visits that guest has made, and that's recorded in that final column of the report. Much like a lot of the changes we've made to our court booking reports, all of them allow you to do it not only in a date range, but by day of week and also by time of day. So if you want to filter more tightly to see if you're getting a lot of guests during prime time, you can set up that time filter to encapsulate that prime time and then run the report accordingly. You can also filter by activity type and court type, so you can do single activity type, many activity types, a single court type or many court types, and then also the statuses of your booking. And again, we've opted to repeat info on each line, again, for those scenarios where you need to export it to a third-party system, and then you want to analyze it further. We also added a new report, the activity type court type utilization report. This is sort of the granddaddy of them all. It provides a lot of information in a summarized format, but then it can break that information down further within it. So if you look at things like, it gives you the ability to filter by activity type, court types within it, day of week, time of day. You can detail it by privilege. You can include paid and unpaid, and you can also include the utilization that's attributed to class scheduling bookings, appointment bookings, and even event bookings, and that can all be contained within this report. In a later slide, we'll cover how you can actually break down this block section to see which employees the blocks were assigned to. So it's a giant report, can be reported on all of your activity types, all of your court types, and you can see that utilization across all of them, and even aggregated up to the court type level as well as the activity type level. So for those of you who are using courts and are familiar with the wait list, this will be useful to you. I mean, we added a waiting list function probably the spring of 2020, and we've been adding stuff to it throughout this time. But the waiting list allows members to submit requests and then have those fulfilled and automatically notify the members that their waiting list request is eligible for a booking. It'll send them an email and they can accept it. When they're filling out that wait list request, they have the ability to set a property on it that says, I want to swap an existing booking. So for instance, if a member is only allowed to play once a day and they booked court 5, but they really didn't want court 5, they would have preferred court 1, they can have their court 5 booking and then submit a request for court 1 at the same time or the same time range. And then they can say on that booking, you know what, I want to swap my court 5 booking for my court 1 booking if at all possible. So in those scenarios where they receive a booking from the wait list and swap a booking in the process, we introduced this report to show you all the people that did that and when they did that. And you can see there's a variety of filters. Again, you can do it by activity type and or court type, date range, day of week, as well as time of day. When you run the report, the output's going to look something like this. So it's going to give you a table indicating who the players are on a given booking, what date they swapped, what court they swapped, what booking they inevitably ended up with, what court they inevitably ended up with, and then when that swap took place. So if you're interested in understanding how many bookings are being created in your system that are the result of people swapping, you have the ability to run this report and get that kind of information. We've also enhanced the court audit report. So a couple of common themes here, adding the ability to repeat info on each line, and then being able to select court types, either one, many, or all. So by default, it's set to all, but you can select fewer than all. You can select just one, entirely up to you on how you want to run the report. But it'll give you all of the changes that were associated with a given booking, the price, the amount, and what was billed, as well as the chip number if it's been sent to point of sale. So you can see all that information within here. And like I said, when you repeat info on each line, it takes it into Excel. So we're sorting, filtering, and a lot of other further analysis becomes quite a bit easier.
Hey, Rob, just to jump in, I have a question from Peggy. She's just asking, is there a detailed guest visit report available for event activities?
Not at this time, Peggy, but that's something we can consider for future dev. Let me just take note of that. Perfect. Okay. Thanks for that. So we've also added some new fields to the enterprise report generator. If you're concerned about when bookings were created and canceled and you're creating your own reports through enterprise report generator, you now have data points for created time, last edited time, and cancel time. So this is helpful in scenarios where someone comes in and says, hey, my booking was changed, who changed it? You can return that information through the enterprise report generator to see when it was created, when it was last edited, and if it was canceled, when it was canceled. So obviously, if a booking was never edited or never canceled, you'll see an NA in those fields as opposed to an actual date time value. But if it was, those date time values are now available to you in a report you create yourself. So we've added a couple of changes or configuration options to the privileges, and you'll see they're both outlined here, one regarding past bookings, another regarding same-day bookings. So these are useful in scenarios where, especially the disregarding past bookings, where you only want to limit members' ability to make bookings in the future. So if you set up a limit on a member that's on a privilege that says a member can only book once per week, but you check that disregard past booking flag on it. That means I can have one future booking for a given week. If that booking is now in the past, we're not going to count it towards their limit. So as soon as that booking goes into the past, it becomes irrelevant for counting a booking. So if I started this week and I made one booking for Wednesday, and then on Wednesday, right after my start time of that booking, it becomes a past booking. So if I want to make another booking for Thursday, not a problem. We'll disregard it, and you'll be able to make a second booking. So again, it's there to ensure that members are not making multiple bookings in advance and holding those places so that other members can't book. But it does allow them to book as soon as their other bookings have gone into the past, if they're in close to infringing on their limit. The same is true for the disregard same-day bookings flag. So basically what that takes into account is if you're making a booking today for today, then we're not going to count that towards your limit. So again, you can have 2 bookings in the future this week, but you want to make a booking for today on today, not a problem. That booking is fine. And again, it's there to sort of say, you know what, we're not concerned about our courts being used. We're really concerned about members not holding places and preventing other members from booking. So if I have 2 bookings on Thursday and Friday and I've reached my weekly limit, if I make a booking today for today, then that's not going to be counted. So I'm still below my limit because I haven't exceeded my limit, I should say, because today's booking wouldn't count. We've also made a change to the setup of these schedules for courts and court types when you use the set hours by time of year. So the set hours by time of year is designed to allow you to set up different schedules based on date ranges within a given year. Based on the light, if the courts aren't lit, then you probably don't want to have them open past 6 o'clock in the winter, but you'll let them be open until 9 o'clock in the summer. What we did was we more closely matched the grain of the schedule to the interval of the court. So when you set up a court, you have this court type rather, you set up a time slot interval, and now the grain of this schedule setup will more closely reflect what you've set up in the time slot interval. So there's if your court interval is 10, 30, 60, or 90 minutes, we'll give you a 30-minute grain of start times, versus if it's 5, 15, 45, or 75, it'll be a 15-minute grain. So again, it gives you more flexibility in choosing the start times that your courts open at, so that they can more closely reflect what you're utilizing the courts for. So you can start them at 8:15, or you can start them at 8:30. It's no longer restricted to the top of the hour. We can only start at 6 o'clock previously. So we mentioned this earlier when we talked about the activity type court type utilization report. It's the ability to add feature or ability to detail blocks by employee within this report. So this is kind of a 2-pronged approach. We've always had the ability in a given block to assign it to an employee. What we've done now is in the report giving you the option to detail blocks by employee. When that's selected, it's going to break down the amount of time that's blocked and its percentage of utilization by the employee to which those blocks were assigned. If no employee is assigned, it's just going to label it as NA. So we use the term employee, but it's really just a staff member, and that staff member could be used to represent anything. You just have to create that staff member. So if you wanted to attribute blocks to maintenance that was being done on the courts as a sort of a catch-all category, you could create a staff member named maintenance or court maintenance, and then when you create maintenance blocks, assign it to that employee so that when you run this report, it would detail which blocks were assigned to your staff member court maintenance. If you actually wanted to see it as employees, just assign it to an employee that's eligible for courts, and they'll show up on the report much like you've seen here. So a little more ability to see what the blocks are being utilized for as opposed to just grouping them all together as blocks. All right, let's move on to dining reservations, and I know we have a number of clients on this call that are utilizing it. So we've added some data points within Enterprise Report Generator as well for dining reservations, including the start date and time and end date and time. So previously these values weren't collected into a single value. You can see here below you have start date, end date, start time, end time. So we've just created 2 new data points that allow you to put the whole start date and time and end date and time into a single field. So it just makes it easier for you to see that information on the report in one field as opposed to having to do it in 2. We've also added the member number to the time view within the dining reservations schedule screen. So you can see here that we show both member and guest numbers if applicable. And in the case of a guest, we'll show their guest number with the word guest in brackets so that you can tell which ones are guests and which ones are members. But we just added that to the time view so you can see the member number for the member or guest number in their case, that has a reservation at a given time. Moving on to event management. So this is quite a recent change, and it seems to be helpful for clubs that are holding events virtually. So we know that a number of clubs are using event management for a variety of purposes, and some of them may require, video conferencing as opposed to being in person, given the restrictions we've seen in the past year and a half. So what we did was we added a field to the facilities line within a given report where you can specify an event URL. In addition to that, when a member registers for a given event, the confirmation will also include the event URL within that confirmation. Now, this is not something that's automatically going to happen. You have to add that value to the form you have or you're using for your confirmations. And I wouldn't advise that you try to do this yourself. I would definitely advise you to contact our support and have them work with you to add this value into the report. But what I will do is show you how it works. So if we go into an event and we go to my annual general meeting virtual, and I'm sure some of you have made this mistake before where you double click the event. You probably should have hit edit, but in this case it doesn't matter because but it is a registration event. So what you can always do is click this edit event button that we added in for people like me that inadvertently double click the event instead of selecting to edit it, and that'll launch the edit screen. And within the edit screen, within the facilities tab, you can apply a URL. So this is especially useful when you have a multi-seating event, so you have multiple seatings and they're all going to be virtual. You have this event URL column, and within it you can paste in a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet or WebEx or whatever you're choosing to use to do the virtual meeting, and you can paste that in there. Now, like I said, once the form is modified, you can then have that information sent out as part of the event confirmation. So if I register myself for this event, I'm going to receive a confirmation that provides me with all the information, including, because I've modified my form, the event URL. So hopefully that email comes in shortly and I'll show it to you. Well, I'll move on for now. When I get the email, I will definitely bring it up. So in that same vein, with respect to email confirmations, we've also added the ability for you to specify the subject line for each of the different confirmations that are available within event management. So new booking, edit, cancel, or new waitlist confirmation, as well as the event update and the event cancellation. So when you make changes to an event or you cancel a given event, you can also modify those subject lines to be whatever you'd like. If you don't enter anything in, it's not going to be blank. It's going to use the default value that was in there previously, but that option is now available to you to modify those subject lines to your preference. Again, we made another change in this most recent release that's kind of interesting, especially if you're setting up events and you want to apply a service type discount to all service items. So you'll see we've added this button in the service type line where it says apply service type discount to service items. What this allows you to do is to apply a blanket discount to all of the items that belong to that service type. Previously, if you'd set a discount at that level, it would only be new items that you've added. That button allows you to say, you know what, I want to apply the same percentage discount to all of the items of this service type. If you don't want to do that, just don't use the button. And you can go in granularly and edit each of the different items to reflect the discount you want to. What's nice about this button is that even if you've applied a discount to an item previously, you can override that discount by hitting the button. So let's take a look at that in the actual application. So if we go into my event list, bear with me a second. So if I go into the Smith Jones wedding and we go to the services tab, you can see here I have a series of different service types. And in here, I have the roast pork loin under dinner, and it's got a $100 discount that I've applied manually. If I decide that in here I'm saying, you know what, I want to do a 10% discount, I can then hit this button. And when I do that, it's going to say, do you want to do it to all the service items? And if I say yes, it's going to change that discount to actually 10% of the total amount. So instead of being $100 flat, it's going to be $129.50 based on that percentage discount. If I change this again, then I can apply it again. But if it's not changed, it won't show that button. And again, if I want to modify this and say, you know what, I don't want that to be $142.45, I want it to be $100, then I can always modify that to be $100. It just makes it easier. You can do them en masse as opposed to having to do them one at a time. And again, once you establish that discount, anything new I add is going to abide by that. and inherit that 11% discount. So automatically it's going to add that discount in. So it still applies going forward, but if you wanted to override it, you have the ability to do so.
Thanks everyone for making it this far in the webinar, and thanks Corey and Rob for the previous 2 sections of today's webinar. Our third area for the webinars today is to cover some feature highlights within Encore that you may or may not be already aware of, projects that we've worked on maybe in the last year or so, some newer integration offerings as well that we're going to cover today. So the first feature that we wanted to highlight for today's presentation was the fact that we've actually added the ability for your club to communicate with members but via text message or an SMS text message. And how we've done that, we've partnered with a provider called Message Media. So based on your current communications with members, such as email confirmations for tea times, for bookings, for dining reservations, and in addition to that push notification option that we've offered in the member app, we've added the ability to have SMS text confirmations as well to those additional 2 communication methods. Now, all of us can appreciate we're all using our cell phones quite frequently, and we're checking them a number of times a day. I found this interesting fact actually, that it's about 150 times a day we'll check our phones. So it is growing in many industries as being the best way to reach your customer base. And I would, with club policies not allowing cell phones in clubs, I know things are changing, but for the sake of communicating out to a member and getting more positive and confirmed appointments with less cancellations and no-shows, I know it's worked for me in my dentist appointments. So definitely a great project here to consider and discuss further with your club if you're not already texting your members via SMS messaging. So what we've actually done is we offer a partnership through Message Media, and you can definitely contact your Jonas sales rep for information on how that works and all the pricing. However, it boils down to, once you do set up the integration within the software, there's really 2 types of messages. And I kind of mentioned the first one, which is really activity, booking, and registration confirmations and reminders. So it's not only that initial confirmation when someone makes an appointment, but also additional reminders, which is really the key thing. That 24-hour or day of reminder before my dining reservation at the club, I can get that text message to remind me about it. So that's powerful. And it is integrated to dining reservations, class scheduling, event reg, court bookings, appointments, and health and spas. So those are the applications that it's currently integrated to. In addition to those booking-based communications that we'd want to send out to the membership, there is the ability to also do ad hoc SMS text messages. And those ad hoc SMS text messages can be sent very similar for those clubs that are on today's session that use the push notification ad hoc feature in your Clubhouse Online site. There's a little image here, as you can see, where similar to sending up a push notification, you can create a notification by going to text messaging, and you do have the ability of targeting an individual member or a membership type or status. So that allows you to then be able to send messages to outside of booking confirmations as well. So that is one of the features our first feature we wanted to highlight for today. And if you have any further questions or any information that you're looking for this feature, you can definitely reach out to your Jonas sales rep. The part that I wanted to present for the feature, the highlight of the feature, is really for us to think about that enrollment process that our membership is going to go through as we kind of endeavor this communication method at the club. So we all understand that text messaging and messages can be, they have to be opted in from a legal standpoint. So initially, we've done a lot of work with the integration, which I wanted to just briefly demo, not to get into the weeds right away. But I just wanted to show that there is an initial welcome message that once your integration is set up and you have signed up with with Message Media as a provider, they do offer an individual phone number that you can purchase. You can have a special club number that would be the number that all messages would be sent from. And the screen that I'm sharing right now essentially is the integration profile for my Message Media within my system. And once we're signed up and you do have that sign up with them, we do have the ability to then set up a welcome message, and that welcome message is what members would receive by default when you want to enroll them or opt them in through the messaging service. So the first message is giving the ability of setting up that welcome message, and then being able to target that welcome message when you do sign up initially for this communication method, to be able to target it off to a group of members initially to sign them up, to send that initial welcome message. And what's going to transpire from there is that members are going to receive that message, and they will have to reply start to then be triggered as a contact that's going to be opted in to the club's messaging. So any future messages would then be received to that cell phone number particularly. So that's something that we did want to kind of throw out there as we're thinking about messaging. So if there is the need for messaging and obviously getting members enrolled, we're thinking about that in the feature of initial sign up. And then beyond that, once you are in the member file, just to kind of show a sample member and to see whether or not a member is opted into messages or not, because once you initially get everyone signed up, it would be on an individual basis. We have added the ability here, if I just look for Michael Anderson, I'll look for Mr. Anderson here. And if we go into the contact info for any member, typically where we add their mailing address and their primary info, you'll notice that next to the cell phone field, there's an SMS status. Currently, I haven't sent the welcome message to Mr. Anderson. It's setting as undefined. So that would be the default status. Once the welcome message is sent, it's pending. And you can also click on the send welcome message key here for individual members after the initial, launch for your SMS texting campaign at your club. And then from there, it would update that SMS status to opted in. And if a member ever replied stop or that keyword to stop messaging, it would then update to opted out as well. So that's what we're pretty much doing there to make sure that we're going to only communicate out and send messages to opted in members at any given time. So that was really what I wanted to present just for the brief sign up, just to let everyone think about message media and text messaging and what it's going to involve to get it out and started. And from here, I'm just going to move on to our next feature here for today, which was developed in 2280. It was done for a specific club. We do understand that some clubs do have a lot of service charges and gratuities that you may charge in certain sales areas. And then there's also the concept of extra gratuities and tips. So what we've actually done in the staff tip out feature is by sales area, we've allowed you to actually enable a tip out feature. And you get to actually choose whether or not you want extra gratuities, or service charges to be included in the available tip out allocation amount. In fact, we've also provided for a feature where you can have a club portion so that, let's say we charge an 18% service charge in our dining room, and the club gets to keep 10% and 8% gets paid out to staff. There is the ability of having that club portion set up. So with this feature, it allows staff at the end of their shift to optionally perform a tip out. And that's something I'm prepared to show today. I have Sally ready. She's done some chits, and we're going to go ahead and show what her end of shift lift looks like for a sales area that has tip out enabled. Once we tip out other staff, and the key word is staff, not users here, because we have provided for the ability of actually tipping out a dishwasher or a kitchen person, anybody that's set up as a staff in the system, not necessarily a user that logs in and creates tickets and does activity. But if staff does want to share their tips out to other staff, they can do that as a part of their end of shift. And what transpires from there is accounting and the office individuals having a nice tip out report to complement that extra gratuity report that already serves the main purpose of gratuities today. And then in addition to that, we also have added a maintain tip out program so that you can maintain tips and edit those tip out records for payroll purposes as well. So that's a little bit about the feature. There is a video of it available as well. It does impact the end of shift reports. As you can see, we've added some new areas to the end of shift report sample that shows the tip outs, and it actually shows the individuals and the amounts tipped out to each individual as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just come into Encore here, and I'm going to log out and log back in as Sally for the presentation, and then we'll just go ahead and show you what that tip out screen looks like for the feature, and then we'll go ahead and maintain and show the report as well. So as I just log back in, okay, so I'm just going to log back in as Sally, my server for today. And within her shift for today that she already has open, she's closed her 2 checks. And you'll notice that because I'm in my Oak Room sales area, that is enabled for tip outs. I have an enter/tip outs key now added to the toolbar in the My Shift tab. This enables me to enter tip outs if my shift is closed. So the key thing is the tip out feature is available upon ending the shift or on closed shifts. So when Sally is done her day, it's been a light day with 2 covers, she's going to go ahead and end her shift. We've added a prompt because the sales area is configured, and you can go ahead and click on the green check mark to tip out other staff. If she wants to keep her tips to herself and that's not something she wants to do, she can simply hit the red X on that and all the tips would belong to her. The tip out report would show Sally's full tip amounts and nothing tipped out to anyone else. The gratuity report would still remain under her user and show her the activity-based tips that she attracted. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark here just to kind of show everyone the enter/tip out screen. What we're showing is the shift information to start. We're showing Sally, the user, the staff that she's associated to. So that's really a key piece in the feature is that we have users and they must be linked to staff. And there's some staff in your club that aren't users of the system in the kitchen and etc. that you may want to tip out. So therefore, they're going to be included here. So I can go ahead and select staff. And when I do that, I actually have a staff here, Cindy Larson, who I want to share my tip with in today's example. And you have 2 options to actually share the tip. But before we do that, let's go over the top right available section. In my sales area, I had configured to only allow extra gratuities and gratuities to be available for tip outs. So amongst my shift here, I have all $25 in gratuities attracted. No extra tips were kept there. So in this case, I have 2 options as Sally. I can either do a percentage split by clicking into the percentage key, percentage field, or I can do an amount by clicking into the amount, or I could do a both if I needed to as well. So in this case, I'm just going to do a simple tip out. I'm going to do a $5 share. I'm going to give Cindy $5 of my tip outs. And I'm going to go ahead and accept and continue that. Notice the key thing here is that Sally's always being shown what's remaining for her. So as you enter tips to share, the remaining amount is still going to go to Sally so that we get an inclusive report. So I'm going to go ahead and accept and continue on this just to kind of show that during that end of shift closeout process, I can go ahead and do that tip out. Now, if I do print that report, it would then obviously give you my end of shift report, but with the new sections there of that tip out available and each individual staff that I tipped out with their dollars as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log out and log in as a manager into the back office system just to kind of show the next piece of this feature. And as a user here, once I'm logged into the system, since it is a point of sale based feature, we would just simply click on point of sale and all the new tip out programs have been added there. So if we click on our point of sale menu, you'll notice that under tasks, there is now a maintain tip outs records program. We'll take a look at that one next. And then the next thing, the last item that we added within this feature was the staff tip out report. So as I come to my maintain tip outs records, because we know there's going to be mistakes and there's going to need to be corrections. And for those clients that use our time tracker system, this program may look familiar because it is similar to your maintain time records program, but you can filter by staff if it's an individual or a week that you're looking at, or by department and job code if it was somebody that you wanted to look at there. And then when I click on the weekly summary section within there, you can easily see that I have Brittany and Cindy's tips and Sally's tips as well for each day of that week range that I selected. And if at any point I needed to edit anything, I can just click on the little magnifying glass icon button here to then get to the individual day's tip out records and be able to get back to that tip out to be able to adjust it. So essentially that is the feature here, to maintain tip outs, obviously being done in case of errors or being able to adjust things after the fact in case, a server didn't really do their tip outs, but they should have. So we can do it here after the fact. So The last piece in the tip out feature is the staff tip report. And if I go to the tip out report here, you can easily see I can generate this report for just today, and I'm going to use my event staff just as an example here. And just kind of show that we have the tip outs for Cindy and Sally. And you can see the source is the key thing I wanted to present, is that we have the tipped out, that Cindy was tipped out $5 and Sally had my tips of $20. Okay, so that's, I think, enough details and demo on the feature. If your club does share tips, then this feature will be very beneficial. I will move over to the next feature that we're going to be presenting now. And the next feature that we wanted to do is something that I hope every client already is using in some degree, if not themselves. Maybe some user at the club is giving them information from one of our business intelligence dashboards. And the feature highlight for today's session was really to focus on the advanced features and to kind of review how to share our information and how to share these dashboards with everyone. So just for everyone that may not know what a dashboard is, it's nothing but a collection or a screen of various containers in positions, and each container is a chart or view of information that offers the ability for someone to interact with it, to drill down and take a look at some more a deeper dive detailed information within it. So for those that don't have a dashboard like I'm going to be presenting today, please feel free to go back and try to set it up. It's always been in the system. We can also help along the way. If there's probably someone in the club that has a dashboard out there that we can use as a basis as well. But for today's presentation, if there is any users on the line that have dashboards or savvy at it, let's use the permissions tab to to restrict dashboards to users that don't have that shouldn't have access to that information. But more so, I wanted to focus on that publish feature that I'm hovering over in this last screen over here, because we can publish dashboards to other users and then they'll be available to them. So if I know how to create one and I have one that's been working so well and I want to share it with the GM or the controller or the office manager, feel free to publish those dashboards as we're going along. Now, for starters on this area, there is a YouTube video as well, so we can definitely look at our YouTube library and get a head start if you're not advanced yet. So for today's presentation, I just wanted to firstly get the gears going on this feature as far as sharing my controller dashboard, and that's really my home screen when I log in. So for everyone that doesn't know that you can have one of these home screen dashboards and you don't see it, it's under my preferences. So that's the first thing under system admin, system setups. We have a my preferences program. So as Maz is logged into the system today, I do have a home screen dashboard, and that's set to controller. So you can always set a home screen dashboard. And then go ahead and, it'll be assigned there. I see that. And I do see a question there. Can we add the license use info to a container in a dashboard? Currently, we do not have that ability. It is a standalone program. Dashboards are more reporting for the club as opposed to system, but definitely something we can consider for the future. Thanks for the question. So within the My Preferences home screen, once you set it, that is how I got my controller's dashboard here. And you can see that I have, 4 containers running in my first column, 3 in the second, and so forth. So the point I'm making is you get to really set the number of containers you want in each of these columns. And how to do that, I just wanted to quickly show that for today on any dashboard. I'm going to go to my controller dashboard just to kind of show that. So you're not limited, and I know a lot of clients may use our set number of containers to set their dashboard templates, and they live within the number of containers templates that we provide. But it's as simple as coming into a dashboard and being able and adding other rows to it. I'm going to go to a different dashboard here just to kind of edit this. Just give me one moment here. Show. So anywhere we have a dashboard where you see you have the blue arrow icons, you can see I can add a column. And then I can also add a row above, or I can add a row below. So I really wanted to show the first thing is to add another column. We can always hit the arrow key, the blue arrow key, but within any column to add more charts, you can easily add above or row, add one above or below. I think there is a max of 4 in each column. As you can see, I hit this max of 4, so it doesn't give me the option anymore. So it's about 4 charts per column, not limited to the templates that you provide. So I just wanted to quickly show that if you do want to add some more charts in between, there is that option through the icon here in any column. So that was the first thing we wanted to kind of go over there, was ensuring that you know how to add more charts within a BI view. Some of the examples that I had for today go towards the advanced side as far as filtering goes. So with keeping time in mind for today's session, I just want to quickly show some examples of charts that I have created, just to get everyone's thoughts going as to what the what kind of capabilities you have in the BI tool. So as an example, I have a golf sales by category with comparisons, and this is really showing me same day today versus same day last year, this week versus same week last year. So for those that haven't gone to BI views for quite a while, we have added comparative date ranges. So that would be the first piece there for advanced filtering. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of show that for any BI view, we do have the ability of now choosing comparatives. So in addition to today's sales, I have yesterday's, then I have today's compared to yesterday's sales, and I also offer today's sales with the same day calculated that was last year. And this can be done for any data point or for any time range, monthly, yearly, or whatever you'd like. So that becomes powerful to have a comparative, and I've kind of segregated this off to golf, and that's very easily done with the BI views upfront filters, whether you want to apply sales area filters or in a case of a category filter as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that golf one so we can see my filters here. So in the golf category, sales comparison, that's the one I should have selected here. You can easily see that I'm restricting my sales areas to just my golf area, so that way it becomes a golf view. I can also further then include the categories that I want, just as an example, and I can also have the overall monthly and the days that I was wanting to show here. So for those that are not familiar with BI views, watch the YouTube video. It'll go over the upfront filters. For those that are a little bit more advanced or haven't visited their views for a while, there is comparative views available for any date range type that you have. So that'll be nice to have a few more charts added if you don't have them. And then I wanted to further take the advanced filtering, and the last topic of the filter that I wanted to show for this highlight feature was, I chose the wrong chart, was more around using demographic filters, and that's really around your membership. So in an example here, I had a sales by age group, which I wanted to show. It's in the drop down here, and that sales by age group is really me just taking one of my existing views, duplicating it, doing a save as, and then just adding a quick filter by age group to a few of them, so that then I can kind of see my sales, my golf sales. In this case, my first column is sales by area by age group, and then my second column is just golf sales by age group. So that's just another suggestion. Now, how did I do that age group filter? That's the key piece. And for today's presentation, most of our advanced filters that we want to demonstrate are under the client demographics tab. So in addition to filtering your sales area and your categories, you can further filter your members that you would like. So if you wanted a BI view that was just golfers, golf members and their activity, we can further granular, filter out which membership types you'd like to include. You can also do a club status filter, but the last one is really powerful. And for those that use our enterprise report generator writer, the advanced filter tool is familiar. And this is where that age filter did come from. I'm just adding it to the comparison view for the sake of time, but I could really easily come in and do an is between after I choose the age and put in the age range that I want. And there's a bunch of different membership fields that you can see here, and this includes your extra information or custom info fields as well. So you can further definitely condition your sales and count charts to have additional filtering and conditions, and then have them as separate dashboards, if that makes sense. So that was really what I wanted to present as far as getting us into more advanced type of BI views and dashboards. Hopefully that does help explain this feature highlight. I'm going to move on to the next part of the session since we have limited time remaining. The next highlight feature that we have is, for those that know, we did launch Shift Manager as our employee scheduling app. And with Shift Manager, some clients, few would like to have Shift Manager just as a standalone scheduling app. They may not make use of our time tracker module, or rely on our time clock and like that point of sale integration for clocking in and out, making sure that shifts are validated with clocking in and out. So for those clubs, that's fine. Shift Manager is available as a standalone employee scheduling tool. It is web-based for those that are interested in doing stuff a little bit more remotely. It does also offer an app for managers as well as employees. So this way, an employee can have an app on their phone, and they can see their shifts, put requests in for days off, and there's also some features that can be enabled, like trading of shifts that those attending from the food and beverage industry may be aware of. So there is that ability overall, but that's the overall capabilities of Shift Manager as far as a scheduler and as well as the app and notifications within it. Now, what we've done for Encore is we've done a tight integration to your staff setup within the Encore system. That way you don't have to be doing things in two places. You can actually maintain all your staff right within Encore under the staff setup that you're used to if you're, as an example, a time tracker customer. And in that case, we would automatically sync any staff setup in Encore over as employees into Shift Manager. So there is that integration where Encore is the master and you get to do things in one place, maintain all your setups in one place, and then they automatically update to your Shift Manager tool, your employee scheduler tool. We've also taken it a step further where you actually can import time records from Shift Manager, that if you want to use their time clock solution, they offer a time clock, but if you want to use it but have all the reporting done under time tracker reports, because you like the Jonas Encore reporting under time tracker, or there may be some departments that may want to use Shift Manager, such as food and beverage may want to use Shift Manager versus another department like grounds just want to stay in time tracker, that is possible as well. So we've kind of made it also have an option for having a single place to report. I hope I make sense on that, so that when you run your time tracker reports, regardless of where a staff is clocking in and out, you get one report and one export to payroll. So that's something that we've done as well recently. The last feature for today is we're going to be looking at that we wanted to highlight for those that may be aware. We did complete an integration with Beanworks. We can all appreciate that AP automation is hitting our club industry. It's been around for at least a few years now. It's growing a lot of popularity. Even in the pandemic, it's been more popular, and it's going to continue because approvals and overall automation saves us a lot of time, and it does make sense for certain functions such as accounts payable here. So what we've done is, for Beanworks is a third-party company that we've partnered with. We have done the integration. If you want to learn more specifically about what the Beanworks application does as far as the features and functions within it, you can definitely contact Bill Booth or Jeremy Hawk. Those are the two individuals that are in charge of the Encore integration with Beanworks. They'll be happy to show you what Beanworks is all about. So we wanted to raise this, and the reason why we wanted to kind of raise this is because in AP, especially when from a manual standpoint, there's a lot of hidden costs as far as invoice manual and manual invoice entry goes. There's obviously increased risk. There's remote challenges, as I mentioned, and then within that, AP teams can also be overwhelmed because there's a lot of volume, maybe even seasonal volume, because clubs are open and really busy processing bills for a certain time of the year. So for those reasons, Beanworks can definitely help in a bunch of areas, because it'll obviously streamline a bunch of those processes. But the part that I wanted to really talk about was the last picture here on this bullet point, which is the full integration with Jonas Encore. So what I've done for the presentation was I really wanted to show how quick it is to import a file of invoices as opposed to keying them in. And if there was the option for any club to go that route, you know, it is beneficial. So for today's presentation, I just wanted to quickly go into my Beanworks batch and just quickly show that if I was an individual that was no longer going to enter bills and I wanted to import them into the system, it would be a simple file that Beanworks would create for us. And when I just wanted to choose the right file here. There it is. And if I wanted to import you know, that file of approved invoices through that workflow, that automation workflow that Beanworks offers, at the end of it, your Jonas system, all you would do is import that file, and then once you're done, you know, it enters your batch just like anything else, and you're off to previewing and posting it. Obviously, payments and checks are still done out of your system, and what transpires from there is a payment file gets returned to Beanworks so that they can update those invoices as paid, etc. as well. So I'm going to go ahead, and this was the last feature in the last demo, so I'm going to wrap it up and open it up for our Q&A.